We got a longtime friend of the podcast joining us. None other than former ECU baseball play-by-play voice and the voice of the Tulane Green Wave, our good friend, food aficionado, Taco Bell aficionado, Corey Gloor. Corey, welcome to the Boneyard podcast yet again, my friend. How you doing?
The graphic design that just the guest segment graphic design was just it enthralled me. I need more. What production design you guys have now here? You guys have graduated.
Hey, we got Josh on the sticks behind the scenes. Yep. Shout out Josh. We're graduating. We're trying to be a little more uppity, you know, like
right.
We're
a little more bougie on the Boneyard podcast.
That's the term. You're getting bougie at Boneyard podcast.
Corey, how's it been, man? Everything good?
It's good. It's good. Temperature dropped like a rock here, which I think it did in a lot of places. So trying to make sure my body doesn't freak out on me before we start basketball next week too. So but outside of that, things have been great. Can't complain.
For sure. Well, Corey, I mean, it just came out yesterday. Tulane, highest ranked G5 team in the college football playoff rankings, coming into Dowdy this weekend. I mean, Willie Fritz has this team still going. Talk to us about the Green Wave.
Well, the record's the record, and that now the ranking is the ranking, and they have certainly earned that spot right now. I know there's been some consternation about Air Force here being one spot behind, but the committee has liked the schedule that Tulane has played. They liked the win at Memphis on a national stage. They knew that the starting quarterback didn't play against Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is number 10 in their rankings. And so that's why they're where they are right now. 7-1 is 7-1. And it's right now people here are kind of in the, all right, let's find what the flaws are right now, because we know what's possible. We just saw what's possible last year. And now the chance of doing this again is pretty strong. So, the last couple of weeks have been wins, but they've been much closer than I think this team would have liked. This offense can still attack you in a bunch of different ways. And Michael Pratt has, now that he's healthy, has become the quarterback that we all expected him to be here this year. This team has a running game now. It took a few weeks to find, but Mekhi Hughes has emerged in that category. And defensively, teams don't run on this club at all. Only one team's rushed for over 100 yards this year against this defense. And so they make teams one-dimensional, and that has been very successful this year. The problems that have come in the last couple of weeks have been these real dips in the second half that allowed North Texas to climb back in, that allowed Rice to climb back in last week. And that's been a huge point of focus heading into this week, is that if you have a lead at halftime, even if you don't have a lead at halftime, they didn't have a lead at Memphis at halftime a couple weeks ago, but there was a dip to start the second half. You have to come out better to begin the third quarter, because it's been pretty close to abysmal in the last couple of weeks here, their third quarters. And so really they've been dominating teams in the first half this year. It's been the second half here in conference play that has allowed teams to climb back in. They've had to win it at the end now. And they know now with the playoff ranking where it is, there is some debate about whether or not they should belong where they are above Air Force. And all these games are on national TV for this club, that they have to start looking the part now. And so I think that's the main message heading into this week, is that if you have a lead, build it. And if you have an opportunity to win this game, win it right away, because a lot of folks are curious as to Tulane kind of falling apart here late in games.
Now, Corey, I want to ask you this, because, at this point in the season, the conference, at least the American, it's kind of a 5-team race, at least with teams that can still compete for a conference championship. You got Tulane, you got SMU, you got UTSA, you got Memphis, and you got Florida Atlantic. Kind of at the top, separated themselves from everybody else. They still have a chance, to play for a conference championship. Of those teams, who would you not want to see against Tulane in a conference championship?
We've already seen Memphis. I like how this team defensively handled Seth Hennigan and that offense we see FAU in a couple of weeks. We see UTSA to end the year. And so we really don't have a ton of up close experience with any of the other contenders right now. SMU's not on the schedule. And so I think what Preston Stone is for SMU as a quarterback, he looks a lot like Pratt and how he runs that offense. And that defense has been so good this year. I would throw out there that SMU's schedule has not been the strongest, and the teams that they've seen that have been real quality, they've lost to in non-conference. And so SMU has a very clear alleyway to the conference championship because they don't see us. They don't see UTSA. I believe they've already seen Florida Atlantic, and they see Memphis in a couple of weeks. So they don't see the other teams that are unbeaten right now in the conference. And so it's pretty clear that they have the clearest path to get to the conference championship game. The way Tulane handled Memphis, I like my chances against them again. What Frank Harris is now that he's back healthy for UTSA, and that really aggressive defense, they can make some mistakes, they can blow some things, but boy, can they get to you and they will hit you. It's a wildly dangerous team, and I think the league is hoping that last Friday of the year will matter in the conference race when we host them here. We see FAU. They're a weird team. I'm not sure I'd put them in the contender group right now, even though they're 3-1. But I don't know if that answered your question. But there are 3 teams at 4-0,
right?
And all 3 of them, I think, are pretty clearly at 4-0 for a reason. Mm-hmm. And so it's, we see one of them to close out the year. That might be a win and into the championship, but Tulane's got to do their part in the next 3 weeks to even have that matter.
Yeah,
for sure. And we talk about kind of this crazy rise of Tulane, right, over the last 2 years, right? Like before last year, I don't think anybody would have seen this kind of run by the Green Wave. You've been right there in a front row seat. What is going on down there in New Orleans? What's in the water?
What the hell is going on here?
Like, how do we get some of that in Greenville?
Yeah. I've talked to some Greenville folks even today, some Greenville media, in fact, and this has been I've been asked this question now a couple of times. And what my answer is, it can be long-winded, but I'm long-winded. You've had me on the show before. After the 2021 year, which was 2-10, there was not a bloodletting of people fleeing this program. It was the first year that Willie Fritz had that you could call bad. And it was awful. And so there was no fire around him. I think there's probably a little bit of pressure about the following year to make sure that didn't happen again. But with the hurricane at the start of the year and living in Birmingham for a month and not having locker rooms or training rooms or anything like that, there was a sense that a lot of that year felt outside of their control. But the biggest part of that was that because of the program that was built, there was a desire to stay. And so the guys that were sophomores, juniors that were being leaned on as leaders of that team, even 4th-year guys, kept around. They didn't go elsewhere. And this is not me bemoaning the transfer portal. Tulane has worked wonders in the transfer portal, and a lot of this team this year is from the transfer portal. But there was an understanding from the key leaders of 2021, Michael Pratt, Tajay Spears, Doreen Williams, Nick Anderson, those core 4, Sincere Hainsworth, who's the center, they got together right after that year ended, and they all made the decision that wasn't going to be the mark that they left on that program, that they all came there for a reason, that Willie Fritz believed in them for a reason, and that was not how they were going to go out. And so they rallied that program. They kept a lot of people here. They made everybody kind of see what they were thinking and believe it. And the recruiting class stayed intact in part because of that. You brought in a couple of guys who wanted to be key contributors in the transfer portal, Lawrence Keys, Jarius Monroe, who are big parts of this year's team. They came in that year. But it goes to Willie Fritz, and he created an operation that people haven't wanted to leave, even after a bad, awful year. And so that led for a massive push by those that were around to make up for it. And there was an honest core belief that they were capable of a heck of a lot better than what happened that year. 12-2 in a Cotton Bowl was outside of a lot of people's imaginations. And I think pretty much everybody's. But they started that year talking about conference championship, and a lot of people thought they were nuts. I saw a bowl team out of that team, and I was wrong. I mean, it was clearly more than that. So it speaks to, and I know you're asking this because of what's happening at East Carolina right now. It starts with, if the foundation is built solidly and properly, then the framework can handle the storms that come. And so now ECU is, the foundation with Mike Houston there is built. Does the framework on top of it, do the leaders in that program, the veteran leadership, and there was a lot lost from last year, but the current members of that team who see themselves as leaders, do they want to keep building on that? Or do they want to go elsewhere? That's the decision that's probably going to come here for a lot of the guys in that locker room. The decision was made here 2 years ago to stay and rebuild, and it happened very quickly. If it can happen here, a Tulane, which is a bear to recruit at, then it can happen at a place like East Carolina. But it's up to the people in that locker room to decide the path they want to move forward next. There's no right or wrong answer to what they do, but they have the decision to make.
That's an extremely good point. I like that perspective. And speaking of, 7-1 Tulane, 4-0 in the conference, right? I mean, obviously, when you're at this point in the season, you're doing a lot of things right. But what are some things that Tulane does need to fix right away if they do want to get back to a New Year's Six bowl game for the second straight year?
Well, I touched on it a little bit, and this is where I'll bring up the last 3 games. Tulane's been outscored in the third quarter 42-14. And they were trailing at Memphis. They let them score a touchdown the opening drive of the second half, trailed by 11, came back to win. Then North Texas, they were up 21 with 4 minutes left in the third. They gave up 3 touchdowns in the third quarter, and then North Texas scored in the fourth. It was a tie game. And then Rice, they were up 20 at halftime. It was a 2-point game when things were all said and done. This team has crushed opponents in the first quarter. Well, I got my handy chart here. Where's my number? I don't know everything off the top of my head. But first quarter this year, 72-17 is the differential in favor of Tulane. And the third quarters have been the exact opposite. And so it's that they have to play a full 60 minutes of football. I mean, just put that cliche out there, because there really hasn't been a game in which I think Willie Fritz has felt that has happened. Even in the win over Nichols, an FCS team, it took a while to get that started. They turned the ball over a ton in that game. Like the South Alabama game was closest, but that was week 1, and then Pratt got injured, and then things started to get a little bit weird. So there hasn't been a full 60-minute game from this team. It speaks to how quality that they are 7-1, and they haven't always looked solid for a lot of these games, that they've had the veteran leadership and the knowledge that they can win games at the end, which they've had to do the last 2 weeks. And that's what a 4th-year starting quarterback can do for you. But there's got to be a real drive to see the first minute through the 60th minute all at the level that they know that they're capable of playing. It's been, the reactions have been, they've been kind of annoyed after these games here of late, because they know they haven't been playing great for some stretches here, even though they've won. And so that's the message now heading into this week, that if you have a chance to put your foot on the throat, you better do it, because people are really watching now, and you got some angry people in Colorado that are very much watching. So it's you got to actually really, really look the part for the next 4 weeks here, and maybe there's a 5th week after that.
For sure, yeah, and that's all of that. I mean, it just thinking about this team and this conference. I mean, it really has shown that the American is still seen as the top of the top when it comes to Group of 5. What are your thoughts on the new group or the new American without Houston, without Cincinnati, without UCF?
I think I think it got a little deeper. I'll be honest, because UTSA is now looking like the team that we thought they were going to be now that they're back healthy. To have, I don't think ECU sees North Texas. You don't. But that team was actually really impressive to watch, especially offensively. Rice is pretty good. And I think that's a bowl team there. But and FAU, as we talked about, is in the mix right now with a month to go with Tom Herman leading the way. So I think that it provided depth in this league where maybe it didn't quite feel like it before. And now you look at what the three teams who left are doing in the Big 12, and the answer is they aren't doing a thing. They're getting just crushed in the Big 12 right now. So, I mean, that'll change. They will evolve and they will settle in here. I'm a little shocked at how bad UCF has looked, admittedly, here in the Big 12 after they nearly won the league last year. But, it's a pretty good league. Like, it's a deeper league than I think people realize. And the fact that it doesn't have the name clout anymore of a Cincinnati or a Houston or even a UCF, I think it's shown that maybe that doesn't matter as much, certainly to the committee with what happened yesterday, that the American is still at the top of the heap at this level of football. When you look around the table here, I think you see a lot of really quality teams that a lot of them have used the portal to their advantage really well, and that has helped build this league really, really, really downward in my mind, where you can point to 8 teams that are pretty quality clubs right now.
Now, Corey, coming back to Greenville this weekend, right? What are some of the things that you're most excited to do while in town, and who are some of the people you're most excited to see while you're in Greenville?
I'm going to be locked in my hotel room. I'm not leaving.
Okay.
As soon as I land, I'm going to fall asleep. I sleep for 15 hours, and then I would go to the ballpark and do the broadcast. No, I mean, when's the last time I was in Greenville? Probably baseball season this past spring. I mean, there will be a table at Tiebreakers calling my name with a bunch of folks that I haven't seen in months. There's a Malcolm Gray in there who I've been talking to for the last couple of weeks. Nice. He handed me, I got his wonderful game notes right here that I've been using to prep for here. There's a Scooter Rogers, voice of East Carolina baseball that I will be seeing. There's a Kyle Gaskins from the ECU video department, and who else? Sam Taylor, who's been a great friend of mine over the years, and Rob Taylor. Sam Taylor is spotting in the booth for me on Saturday, so he's going to have to be somewhat neutral and take off his pirate hat on Saturday. So yeah, and then whoever comes walking in, whoever I hear from, whoever I shout to, I mean, I have such great friends still in that city. And so I'm looking forward to a Friday night of just sitting around, having a few adult beverages and exchanging some stories. And then what's shaping up to be a rather beautiful looking weather day on Saturday for this game. Yeah. And I know that in spite of what the season has been, there will be plenty of folks at Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium. And I mean, you can't beat that. I've called one game there before. It was awful on my end of things 2 years ago. But I know the passion that still exists there. And I'm looking forward to being a part of another weekend like this in Greenville.
Yeah, I can't say that it'll be a beautiful game from our perspective. Beautiful weather, but not a beautiful game probably from our perspective. But, we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, I'm writing nothing in Sharpie about anything moving forward here. Not in this, even with how things have gone for ECU, even with how things have gone for Tulane. I think a glance around college football right now shows that there's you don't have the clear one,
right?
Like you're seeing just like this American. I think you're seeing the sport go deeper, and you're seeing a lot of good teams that maybe aren't getting the clout necessarily that can go up and do something here, or you're seeing teams that have had rough years but put it together at the right time to do something. Mm-hmm. And so what ECU does well, Tulane does well on the other end. It's going to be a strength on strength running the ball against ECU's rush defense. That's Tulane wants to run. ECU would prefer you not, and they're very good at stopping that. And so whatever happens there is going to dictate a lot. This could be a very low scoring game. It wouldn't shock me in the least. Tulane would love to put up 30. They might not have the opportunity to. And so, yeah, I think with what we've seen this year, from what we've seen with Tulane here in conference play, where they've been nail biters, and from what we've seen of late from ECU, that there's nothing to put in frame right now about the results of this one. There are plenty of reasons why ECU can come out and win this game.
For sure. And appreciate you saying that, even if you don't mean. I'm kidding.
I mean it. I totally mean it. Like I got the stuff right here. We'll have trouble moving the ball on you. There's no question about it.
Corey, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. Everybody knows. I mean, we lost another friend of the podcast, Jeff Charles, this past year at a basketball game at Tulane. And during the search, I've always wondered, and you can answer this if you want to. If not, was there ever any interest in coming back to Greenville to be part of that again?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't. I mean, just with my time there, with the relationships I made there, with how the fans seem to by and large seem to like what I do. There'll always be fans that don't, but that's part of the job. Yeah, of course there was a little bit of interest there. It came down to, I'm in a position right now that I'm wildly happy to be in, at a place that has taken me in and has really supported me, and in a city that I love being in. And so just where I am personally, I'm in a great spot. And when I was kind of weighing everything, it really came down to that. Like, I'm really happy where I am and what I'm doing here at Tulane. And so that was the decider. And so it's, with what I did in Greenville, of course, there was a little bit of interest in it. There's no question about it. But Tulane took a chance on me a few years ago when I probably wasn't the experienced guy to go after. I didn't have the resume. I just had ECU baseball. That was what I had. But they took a chance on me to call 3 sports, to host a show, to host events here on campus, and be a little bit of a face and a voice for this athletic department. And for that, I will forever be indebted to them here. And they have treated me unbelievably over the now 3 years that I've been here. So it came down to that. Just as personally, professionally, I'm in a very, very good spot, and I wasn't ready to leave it.
Yeah, and I totally get that, and I'm very happy that you're happy. When we say friend of the podcast, we mean it. So nice. We're happy that you're happy. Would have loved to see you back in the purple and gold and in Greenville every week of the season. But Corey, last question from me. You talked about going to tiebreakers. You know our spot. We go to Sup Dogs every time we're in town. You gonna maybe hit a Sup Crush? Maybe get.
I mean, I want to bad. So when I actually told the conference cross country championships were there this past weekend, and I had the cross country coach here. He reached out to me as like, where do I need to go in Greenville? And I was like, well, first, like, run a race and win it, please. And they did. The women won. But then I said, go to Sup Dogs and sit on the top deck if the weather's nice. Have yourself a Sup Crush and get, your choice of insane menu items that you can have there, but just enjoy. Just don't go past 8:30.
Halloween weekend too.
Halloween weekend. And so that was my first recommendation to them. I don't believe they made it out, but I might try here, depending on how much time I got Friday. When we arrive, I'm going to do my best to get out there and have myself a Sup Crush and got the bacon cheese fries and
Sounds fantastic. I'm hungry. All right, Corey. Well, thank you again for joining us on the Boneyard podcast. Safe travels up here to Greenville, and we'll see you Saturday.
Are you guys at the game Saturday?
Yes.
Yes, we'll be there.
All right. Well, I'll be there bright and early on Saturday. So maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to see each other in person for a rare time.
Yes.
For sure.
So,
all right, Corey.
Kids. See ya.
Appreciate you.
See you, man.